Hey everyone, my name is Brian Howard. I'm a Calgary realtor who has sold an average of a house a week since moving to this great city in 2003. And this is Calgary Living. I'm interviewing Calgary's top performers as it relates to living and lifestyle in our great city. Some of the podcasts will be real estate decision specific, but most will be about life in Calgary and why we choose to live here, or at least why you should visit. Thanks for tuning in. This was a fun conversation with Brad Sapersky. Brad moved to Calgary in 1985 to get his master's in sociology, coming from Winnipeg. Today, Brad calls himself a storyteller, more specifically, a data storyteller. He's a skilled entrepreneurial, orientated, and customer-centric data business analyst with a keen data-driven storytelling ability. His key focus today is on KPI metrics, sales, customer insights, financial forecasting, product performance, campaign tracking, marketing campaign attribution and conversion optimization, client segmentation, and client profiling. A lot of us entrepreneurs and business people can use the skills of Brad to understand, where our business is coming from and help us define our stories. Brad applies years of data analysis, social science, marketing, content creation, TV broadcasting, storytelling, and business ownership experience to generate data-driven business decisions. Due to COVID-19, he is in the process of redefining himself once again to pursue his passion for photography and combine it with his passion for data as a storyographer. Enjoy this conversation with Brad and learn about his Calgary journey. Today, Brad is branding himself as Brad Zip, the storyographer. Well, folks, I am excited to have Brad Sapersky on the phone here today with me on our Zoom call. Brad's a longtime Calgarian, and he'll give us details of that. But recently, Brad is really promoting his skills in data analytics and stories and storytelling, telling the story using data. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's great to be here.
From the moment that I read your LinkedIn profile and your keenness and interest in storytelling, along with data analytics and telling the story through data, I was intrigued.
It's not very many of us around, and certainly not very many people who classify themselves as a data storyteller. I would have to say that I get more inquiries about that part on my LinkedIn title of what exactly is a data storyteller. We know what storytellers are. We've all heard them. We've all heard stories since we were little. But as soon as you throw something in front of it like data, what are you talking about? We've heard of data analytics. We've heard of analysts and business intelligence, and the buzzword of all time is making, decisions, data-driven decisions. But what is this data storytelling is all about? So I changed myself to that probably about 3 years ago, more than anything else, to capture people's interest. But I wanted to differentiate myself in the marketplace. And I've always been a storyteller, since forever, even though I have a master's degree in sociology, but that taught me about people's stories. And my master's degree is in media reality construction. So it's all how the media creates different stories, which led me into documentary making and becoming a television producer for a global television network with a few national syndicated shows. And then I moved from there into owning my own business, but I was still telling stories. I owned a bakery business, a niche bakery business here in Calgary for 8 years. And how I made it successful was by taking people's stories and going online with it and saying food in baking products isn't just a baking product. Mm-hmm. It affects people, and you all have stories about that wonderful meal or the celebration you're having. And it was an honor to be owning a bakery. And actually, I was probably, out of the entire community, part of more people's celebrations than anybody else in the city, because they came to me to buy the products, which was a great honor. And I wanted to know what effect I was having on people, and I took it very seriously. Wow. And so now I'm into the data field. I had to reinvent myself after life experiences got in the way. And I had to focus on a new career and sell my business. And that led me into data. But I never liked numbers. I don't like numbers. Numbers are just that. They're just numbers. Who likes numbers?
How did a guy that, I don't know exactly what you're doing in the film industry, like, for example, 10 or 20 years ago, 30 years ago even, but it sounds to me like you were maybe directing, maybe even behind a camera. How do you go from that to a bakery? Like, and when I think of a bakery, I think of, nice smells and 3 a.m. kind of, work, and into data. How did that happen? And maybe we'll get into it a little bit more and a little bit later, but that's curious.
There is a piecemeal to this. There is a thread that goes through that. So, times were difficult in television. It was always hard to find your sponsorship dollars and your broadcast dollars. And so it wasn't necessarily steady. I was always out of work. My productions were basically 9 months. So I always had 3 months. And then I was always sitting on, I'm Jewish, so I'll use a Yiddish word, sitting on shpilkas, waiting for my executive producer, who was Larry Day at the time, to email me and say, we're good to go for next season. You've got your 3 shows back. And so because of that uncertainty and having a young family, and the kosher bakery here in town was up for sale. So I crunched the numbers and I saw, this is not only a niche bakery, it always was nut-free, dairy-free, but they never marketed it that way. It was always just the local kosher bakery. But the legislation was going to change around allergies. Mm-hmm. And I knew I could be grandfathered into that and become one of none. So the only one in North America. When you look at an opportunity and say you're going to be the only one, and you can pick this business up for next to nothing, even though I had no passion about baking. I never baked a thing in my life. But the community needed it. And so my wife at the time convinced me to do it, and we did it together, and it turned out to be good. So how do you get from there to data? Well, to give you the whole thread, I have Stephen Bochco, the great executive producer of Hill Street Blues. At one time, he was the king of NBC when I don't know how old you're. I'm going to date myself here. I don't know how old your listeners are, but many of you may remember the day that Thursday night television on NBC was the night. That was the night that Hill Street Blues came out. That was 3 out of the top 5 shows were Stephen Bochco's. And he had a formula. So I was at Banff Television Festival, and I ran into Mr. Bochco in a back cafe, and I just thought, I'm going to approach him. There was nobody in this cafe. And it was in the back hall of Banff Springs. Mm-hmm. And I came up to him and I said, excuse me, Mr. Bochco, I know you're taking a breather before your presentation, your major presentation for this seminar. Can I have a moment of your time? And he looked at me and said, because you had the guts to come up to me and ask me, I'll give you one question and make it good. So I said, okay, one question only? He said, yes. I said, what is the key to your success? And he said, good question. So he said, never forget that television is not about the art. It is about the audience. And you are just a medium for the advertisers to reach that audience. You have to make a show that is good enough and entertaining enough that will attract the audience and make the advertisers realize your show is the channel to that audience. If you think it's an art and not a business, you'll be stuck like many of the people here at Banff Television Festival as an independent artist who never makes it. That's the key to my success. Find your audience, analyze them, know what they like, and then build a show around that and get the best talent, best team available to make that happen. And if you are able to do that, you have the magic bullet. And he says, I've been lucky enough to be successful. Well, You know what? His formula did it because after Hill Street Blues, I don't know how many people remember, he came out with a musical series that was the biggest flop. And he has yet to come back, although he was a major player in the Netflix beginnings of Netflix. And he still is an executive producer, but he's not with any of the major networks anymore. That was his demise. He just didn't build a show. He lost advertisers' dollars, and people lost faith in him because he couldn't build that. He lost his magic bullet.
Why did he lose his magic bullet, do you think? He was giving you great advice at the time, and what happened?
Because he misread his audience. He didn't read the data correctly. He didn't analyze it. He went with his gut and didn't have enough evidence to back it up. He didn't tell the right story to the right people at the right time. Now, if he would have been today doing a musical, we've had many very successful musical shows from Disney and many series that have been that way. He would be quite successful today. But in the early 90s, that wasn't what people wanted. But he knew the trend was to move in that direction, to combine drama with music. But it wasn't done right. The audience wasn't ready for it. His show was brilliant, but it wasn't ready for it. The audience wasn't willing to accept it. And so, but if he was to do that today, he'd be extremely successful. And many of the shows that have gone on to success did use his formula. They just changed the timing. So that's an important aspect, and you can rely on data to do that. So with the bakery, I read my audience. I looked at the data, and I built the stories around it, and I changed the way the business was working. I moved it to online, and met the demand of my audience, and I moved to other retail establishments like Co-op and Safeway and Community Natural Foods, and through hotels and through the Husky chain, selling my products and become distribution points. I didn't need retail anymore because the people were ready for it. They didn't need to come into a shop. They could just go pick up the goods elsewhere. So data was always a part of that. And then when I got an opportunity, first with Shaw Cable through Jay Mayer, who just retired as president, was the one who hired me. His kids and my kids were in Youth Singers, a major talent group here in Calgary. And we worked together on a fundraiser, and he knew I was looking for a career change. I needed to move out of the baking industry. And he was putting together a team and offered me an opportunity. And they had never done data before. They were told to survive, they need data. And now it's become a cornerstone of Shaw's success. And so that led me into more of setting my skills to data analytics. I hadn't done it in a formal way. It always was a part. So even in television, to match the program to the sponsorship, you have to know your audience, both on the sponsorship side and on your consumer side. So data had already been a part of it. And my master's degree, I always used data. I was, a researcher in my documentaries. Data was a big part of it. So it always came through. And that brings me to how you get to data storytelling. I could just present the numbers, and some people in the industry really get off on the numbers, and they get off on the process of manipulating those numbers and showing those numbers and accessing the data. Me, I hire other people to do that. That's not, I've had to develop those skill sets, but that's not what gets me excited. What gets me excited is putting the meaning to the zeros and ones. And so you can have the best back end, the cleanest data, all the data in the world, which many people have too much. There's no shortage of data these days. But if you can't consume it and you can't give it in an understandable way to the decision makers in a business that need to make those decisions, it's useless. You're wasting your money and your time. And throughout all of history and culture, there's no more powerful way to communicate than a story. You're a realtor. What do you do to your clients? You formulate a story on a house, matching that this is a good match for what they're looking for on where they're at in their life. You go by your gut. You go by listening to your clients. You're very skilled at it. And you're able to match those features and downplay the negatives or turn the negatives into positives by formulating a story. This is the house for you. And you might show them 3 or 4 different stories at one time, hoping that they'll that they'll buy into one of your
One
stories,
of the stories. Exactly.
right? Now, think about this. How about you combine your storytelling abilities on your skill as a realtor with the data, which you do because you do a market analysis. But what if you could find the data to know as much about your individual, your customer, your potential buyer or seller as you possibly can? Characteristics of where they're at in their lifestyle, where they're at in the life cycle, where they're going to be 5 years from now. If they don't have kids, they're going to have kids. So you want them in this home at a particular time. So maybe it's a 4-bedroom home, but they were only looking for a 2-bedroom home, but they want kids. In 5 years, a 2-bedroom home is not going to do it. An unfinished basement is going to be whatever, an expense to them when their kids get to be 6, 7 years old. They want to be in this house for 15 years and they don't foresee themselves being anywhere else. Then buy the home for your future, not for where you're at now. But when you're with an older family who's downscaling, they don't need all those additional features. They're buying a home for now. They're getting rid of all that. Find those characteristics, combine it with data to give those qualities of the story. You have your framework, but you need to fill it out. That's the match that Stephen Bochco was talking about. And that's what data storytelling is all about. It's about taking those numbers and explaining them to you to say, this is what the data is showing. It doesn't matter what you think you might want now. This is the story that's going to be there tomorrow. You're fitting today, but you need to adapt your story to what the trend is going to be tomorrow. Take COVID, for example. How many restaurants have had to change their way and discovered something? Do they need the high-priced restaurant to be able to meet their audience and to be able to meet their customer base? No, they don't. But some don't know how to adapt to that. What are the future trends? What's going to happen in a post-COVID world? Are we just going to go to an online food experience? Maybe. If you can adapt your business to that and give the people what they want in a way that they want it, to be able to bring that experience to their home or in the local park or out in the mountains, you have to adapt what you're doing. Your food becomes part of their story and experience. It may not be coming into a restaurant anymore. Maybe some people will take that risk. Maybe some people will be comfortable, but you're not going to be able to survive on the drop of a minimum of 30% in your restaurant business. How are you going to find this? And then how are you going to let people know about this? I can give you all those trends and data. Now, combine that to tell the right story in an online digital environment to be able to sell yourself based on good data to formulate your story that will connect with the right people at the right time in the right way. And that's what data storytelling is all about.
That's awesome. Brad, I want to jump back a little bit, or quite a bit, and I want to come back to this very place where we're leaving off, just kind of pause that. You came to Calgary in what year? Why did you come here? Where did you come from?
I came here in 1985 from Winnipeg, Manitoba, in the north end of Winnipeg, growing up in a great community. Winnipeg is a great place to grow up, still is. And I came here to take my master's degree at U of C. I had options of going out east to Dalhousie and to Ryerson and Queens, but a professor of mine from University of Manitoba had just landed a tenure position here in Calgary, and he convinced me to take a chance. And I didn't really like the East. Coming from Winnipeg at that time in the 80s, the East was not all that favorable. And I'd never been an Eastern person, so moving to Toronto didn't really appeal to me. Dalhousie was nice, but it was so far away and so difficult to get to Halifax. Queens was just too prestigious. It was too snotty for a North End Winnipeg boy. And I always liked the West, and I had family here at the time. And I was 21 years old, and I didn't really feel like moving out totally on my own. My parents felt more comfortable. I grew up in a culture that there was only 2 ways to get out of your home when you're that young: either get married or go to university. So I took the university option. Nice. So the fact that I had family here helped. The mountains was beautiful. I came to Calgary. I'd been to Calgary before. I'd come here to go skiing. I just really liked the city. And then at that time, things were up and down, the oil and gas, but it was always, boom. And my father had an opportunity back in the early 70s when he was an electrical contractor and had his own business. But who he was working for at the time was expanding out, which became State Electric, which any of your viewers would know who they are. That's what that company became. They were going to expand to Calgary. And they offered my father to be the general manager, but we were all still young. And he didn't want to uproot the family and himself. So he said no to the opportunity, and maybe he regretted it, maybe he didn't. But so I was familiar with Calgary, and he was familiar with Calgary. And so I just fell in love with it. And then I always said I would go back to Winnipeg. I always thought, and to me, Winnipeg's still home. Where you're born and raised, you'll always stay is my home. It's where my mom still lives. My oldest brother still lives. And some of my friends still are. But every time I went back, I saw how depressed the economy was and how little opportunity it was. And Winnipeg's a very connected community. There's a reason why it's where a lot of North American, not just Canadian, but North American market testing takes place, because nothing changes in Winnipeg. The ratios are the same between the young and the old and the middle class. And so it's a very steady, equal, and almost the perfect split in demographics that you want when you do your sampling. So many research companies come out there. It's not by accident that the insurance company became the hotbed for the head offices of the insurance companies of Canada and North America, because they could do their actuarial research very easily in Winnipeg. So it was all, but if you left, you lost your connections. There used to be a phrase in Winnipeg: nobody bought retail. It was all wholesale. You always knew somebody who knew somebody who was supplying somebody with something. And you, especially being Jewish, from the Jewish community, it was a whole brand new thing to come to Calgary, and I had to pay retail. I'd never paid retail for anything in my life. And it was like, wow, now I got to actually walk into a store, and the first thing I want to do is haggle with the person. And they go, we don't do that here. It's like, you must be from Winnipeg. And it's like, yeah, I am. It's like, how do you know? Because there's so many Winnipeggers who walk in, the first thing they say is, what's the best price you can give me? It's like, that's a typical thing you do in Winnipeg. That's not what you do here in Calgary. So, and so I just never left. I just stayed here.
So you came here in you said 85, you had the Olympics. So I wondered, did you experience that? You graduated, I think, in 1990. At that time, I graduated as well from my first, from university. And there was really no jobs. The economy wasn't great. I mean, in Canada, I wasn't in Calgary at that time. And that's kind of leading into me. What strikes you most about Calgary? I guess being here now for 35 years.
How resilient it is, and how the upturn and the downturn always seems to create opportunity and success. And people just seem to be resilient. They can work through the difficulties. The flood's a prime example of that. And the sense of community pulling together. I don't think any... I would know, being in Calgary during COVID and having become a victim who lost their, full-time employment as a result of the downturn of the COVID created in the economy. I would still feel comfortable here in Calgary that if push came to shove, I wouldn't be homeless. If I needed food, I'd have it. If I was in dire straits and needed my family taken care of, I could find those resources relatively easily. I think strangers here in Calgary would help me. I could probably knock on my neighbor's door and say, I'm really sorry, I'm in dire straits. I have no more money. I need to eat. And they would make sure I would find food on my doorstep. That's the community. That's Calgary. That's the way it is. And there's, no matter how bad it is, there's always a percentage of affluent. And I don't think there's too many affluent people here who don't give back to the community. I think the large majority of that upper echelon who can survive through difficult times always give back. And that beefs up the needy. And then they give back. So that's the sense, that's what I loved about Calgary. And the Olympics certainly brought that together. And the other thing is the forward thinking. I was in the Northwest Calgary. I'm Jewish, so it's in the Southwest. When I first arrived here, there was no C train. It took me 2.5 hours to get to Palliser. to see my family that was here, or they had to come all the way north and drive me. And then with the C train, that changed. I can now get to the south and they can pick me up at Anderson in like 40 minutes. And that allowed me to connect better to the family. But man, was the community really against that? And remember, I'm at university in sociology, and all these planning research papers and the big fight that was going on in Calgary around the C train because it came too close to your properties, and both sides of it. And thank goodness they went ahead and did it because of the Olympics. And if it wasn't for the Olympics, I don't know where exactly you would be, but it really connected this vast city that's just so spread out. So I think we're forward thinking, we're adaptive, and we're resilient, and we don't like to leave people in a bad spot.
What's easy for you these days?
What's easy
for you these days? And maybe similarly, what's hard for you these days? And I mean, again, we're here mid-June, and so you were affected. You were laid off at the start of the course. Yes. When? Middle of March? End of March? When did that happen?
End of March.
So what's easy these days? What's hard? Is anything easy?
Some days, no. I think I don't know what's easy. I mean, it's still easy to be here. Thankfully, I'm not in financial dire straits. I think it's easy to know that I have the community and the services that will have my back if things get really bad. It's easy to grasp new opportunities because people in Calgary are so open to it. So that's to reinvent yourself again, or follow your passion, or evaluate. That's easy. But it's difficult. It's difficult in the up and down economy. It's difficult knowing I have 4 kids. 2 are 18 and 20. So one's working as a barber, Tommy Guns, a stylist. The other one's going to university in Lethbridge, and the 2 other ones are 15 and 16 years old. So I still need to provide for my family, and it does make it difficult in the back of my mind. What is this new economy? We're not bouncing back, even though the economy is opening up. I'm hearing from recruiters and other people that 75 to 85% of the positions, they're just looking for the talent, but they're pulling back from those positions. They're not willing to bite the bullet. Don't know what the future is going to hold. So it's sometimes difficult to think about, wow, how long is this going to last? What am I going to do? And sometimes it is difficult to move forward. I will admit it to your viewers. That emotional up and down that's come with COVID, from days of depression to anxiety to everything, have hit me. And some days have been difficult to do anything. You lose track of time. You lose connectedness with people. But there's services available, and there's opportunity that's available. So as difficult as it might be to be in the conventional economy, there's a great opportunity for me to move into a new way of doing business, and to bring my skill set forward. And that's exciting. So that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. The excitement to be able to do something new, and to be in a community that may be more versed to accept that and to rally around it than other cities in Canada. Certainly, I'm better off here than I would be in Winnipeg. I'd have a family infrastructure in Winnipeg, but I don't think there's as much opportunity and an openness and a willingness to accept new ideas and adapt in changing times.
Oh, nice. I mean, certainly for me, looking at your skill set and everything, and your kind of title as a data-driven storyteller. I mean, that excites me, and I think there's lots of opportunity. On that note, how does your intuition system work for you?
I've been blessed. So my intuition, and I have an ability to see things that other people don't necessarily see, because I can connect the dots. I've always been able to connect the dots. I didn't do well in high school. I always joke with my kids, if I didn't live in Manitoba, and if they didn't have a rule at the time that if you were born and raised and never left Manitoba, you were accepted in university no matter what your grade was, because they viewed for Manitobans at the time, university was not a privilege, it was a right. And so you got in, but I wouldn't get in today if I graduated with my grades from high school. But when I got to university, something clicked for me in sociology, and that was how to connect the dots. It became meaningful. It became meaningful stories. So I've been blessed to be able to hone my skills or God-given talent to see ahead. And in many ways, that's been partly a downfall, because I can see 3 steps ahead and I can connect the dots. At the time, you may not see what those connections are, but give it a month, 2 months, a year, 3 years, and I'm quite often very accurate in my projections. So my intuitiveness is quite high. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to sound arrogant or egotistical here. I'm humbled because I don't believe it's my skills. I believe the higher power provided me that ability to look at things and be able to see it. And also coach. It's not just me. It's sitting down and talking with people like yourself and coming together on ideas and pushing the envelope and getting you to think in maybe a way you didn't. And moving forwards and bouncing ideas. Nothing happens. That's what television taught me. Nothing happens by yourself. No writer can make a show without a good director. And no good director can bring those brilliant images together without a great cinematographer and a brilliant editor and a whole staff and talent in front of the camera and behind the camera who pull this whole thing together, and a score to put the music and the emotion together. You need a team, but you need one visionary who can pull that together. And I like to think of myself, I've also been blessed to be able to be that visionary, to make other people believe in the vision that they themselves want to create and to buy into it. And everybody march in one direction towards the pursuit of that visualization of that end goal of what you want it to be, and to rise up to be better. I always have a phrase. I would like to leave everybody that I meet better in some small way after they've met me than they were before they met me. If I can achieve that, regardless if you make money off of it, regardless of anything else, if I can help and assist somebody to be better tomorrow than they are today because of the brief encounter or the long encounter we've had, then I've done my job as an individual. And if I can do that through my skills of storytelling, data, the visualization, my passion for photography, then I feel like I'm fulfilled. I've learned along the way that money will come, your income will come, but if you put that forward, you're not going to succeed. If you're always thinking, I got to sell my next house. Oh my goodness, I haven't sold a house in X amount of time. I'm running out of money. I need to sell. And you do the hard sell and you push your people, you're not going to be successful. If you just believe in your skills and say, I want to help a person find the right home. That could be tomorrow, today, a week, a month, a year. If that's truly your mission and that's what you believe you're skilled at doing and you truly want to help that individual, the sales will come. I don't care. It doesn't have to be real estate. It could be anything. That's the story. Find your story, live your story, know your story, and match what you want to do. There was Hitchcock. So Hitchcock is a former coach, did an interview after he was dismissed. And he also was asked what the secret to your success was. And this also stuck with me, especially now during these difficult times. He said, if I can find every player and find their passion of what they want to do, every hockey player loves to play hockey, but everybody's got a particular role that they're very passionate about. If you can do that and find the right people and assemble a team with 5 players on the ice, 6 players on the ice at the same time that have this passion to play the role that they're playing, and you can assemble that, even though on paper their skills may not be there, you'll get the Stanley Cup. You'll win. And so his recommendation to everybody was find what you're passionate about and do it. So many of us don't. Right. And I'm lucky enough, the age that I'm at, being presented with the situation that I'm presented at, that I no longer necessarily want to work for somebody else. I'm passionate about certain things. You can hear it in my voice. I'm passionate about storytelling. Why don't I pursue that and help people like yourself and other people and become an active influencer in Calgary rather than a follower, rather than a justifier? It's just giving me an opportunity. You're giving me an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful for that, and I'm humbled about that. But I think that now I'm ready to follow my own passions and to do what really makes me happy. And I believe that the income and the livelihood and success will come with that. I've been fighting this for a long time. Nothing happens by accident, and certain things move you in one direction or another. But you hear those voices that we have to make our money. We have to do these things. We have to have a steady income. We have to have security. We have to have all those things. Believe me, Calgary is not the community, not the city that you play that game. There's no security in Calgary with our up and down economy. You never know what's going to happen. One minute you can be in a boom. The next minute you can be with a startup that all of a sudden finds a niche and a success. And other times you're struggling like we all are right now. It's not like Winnipeg where you got that steady thing, just always even keel. You're not like Vancouver where once the prices shoot up, they never come back down. Calgary always has an opportunity if you can ride it out. So it's a good city to be in.
Right. Yeah. You can do well on the booms and the busts. Well, we hope and pray for everyone.
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit about your interest in real estate. What were some of your first real estate decisions? And maybe you can give us a little bit of history on some of the best and worst real estate decisions, if there was such a thing.
Yeah, there was. My first acquisition was in a weird property in Killarney. So I had been living in the Mission area in an apartment on the river, and I had a job with the government at the time. I'd had it for a while, and I was ready to move in. It was one of those downturns in the economy in the early 90s, and so it was a great time to buy. And so I bought this weird property. It was kind of a house, but it was listed as a townhouse because the property next to me, we shared one wall, barely. It was a 3-foot wall that was shared with water.
Wow. So
the water came up in between, and it was a 3-foot section. And it was a corner lot in Killarney, and it was L-shaped. So my property went down one L, and they had a house on the other side. And it was an award-winning property. It was written up in the Calgary Herald, and it was kind of funky. It had a huge bedroom up top, but the kitchen was all done in the open concept and redone. And it was an interesting property. I bought that property for really a low price at the time, $82,500. I remember I got a great mortgage rate. It was like I was paying like less than what I was paying rent in my mortgage. Then I met somebody, and we wanted to move south. So we wanted to move into the deep south to be closer to the Jewish community. But we did it at a great time. So I bought the house for $82,500, and I sold it for $187,000. And that was less than 3 years after I bought it.
Wow. That's wild at that time.
Because Killarney it is still a highly desired, it's a great area.
So let me guess. See, you bought that property, I'm guessing, in probably 95 and sold it in 98, from what I know about real estate.
Yes.
Am I right?
Pretty much right around then, yes.
Cool.
Right around then. And so Killarney was just incredibly desirable. I just timed it right. People were buying the older houses, splitting these big lots into two. And that was the infill spike. Yeah, that was taking place in Killarney. Was one of those areas because it was so in the middle. It was so easy to get to everywhere. And what people really liked is that the Children's Hospital was like right there. So you if you had a young family, you were like right there if you needed it. So I lucked out and then bought a property in Woodlands, and then having a young family, it was a split level. It didn't really suit it. It was a little bit older. It needed to be remodeled. So we looked at the renovation, and it was going to cost us considerable amount of money to get it the way we wanted it to be. So the developer asked us, is this really the house you want to stay in? Because you can upgrade to another house for less money than what it's going to cost you to renovate this the way you want to. And as it turns out, it was a good move because it backed on to Anderson, and now Anderson's all in expansion there. So it's come really close to the property. So thank goodness we did that. But at any rate, we bought in, but it was at a bad time to buy in. So I sold really high. So again, so you have to remember, so one house I sold for 187. So we bought the next house at 235 because I sold the house at the peak, but virtually, I mean, virtually the following week, the market went bam, and I was on the down spike of it. So now all of a sudden, all these properties, everybody was reducing their rates. Mm-hmm. So I sold high, was able to buy low. And so that was great. So then we bought, but yet then when we had to sell, yes, I was able to sell high. So I sold that house for 365 because that's what we needed. Mm-hmm. And we sold it to a developer who was just going to gut it through a realtor who knew somebody else and who came to look at it and said, yes, I'm buying up properties right now and I'm renovating them and I'm flipping them. And that's what I do for a living. And this house meets my criteria. How much do you need? So that's what we needed because we'd already found a house, but it was 550. We were never going to get 550 out of that house. Not unless another big boom hit, which it didn't. And so it was, we paid over, but at the time that was reasonable because other houses in the area were going for 650, 750. So, and then my lifestyle changed and separated and stuff. So we had to sell that house. And then that led me into the rent game of the situation, which has been interesting. So I've gone, and we didn't sell that house for what it was worth because we just needed to sell it. And again, it's all about timing. Mm-hmm. So we were on the downturn. Nobody was paying 550 for, unless you had it fully renovated and everything like that. So we sold that house for like 485. So we lost money on it. Which is typical when you're forced to sell at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. And the up and down and
economy,
yeah. So I've played both sides. I've been able to move forward and upgrade the house and everything without a loss, without major, huge, more mortgage payments and everything. But then all of a sudden you hit and you find that one where it was risky. Because of the timing. It wasn't like we had an issue. We were getting divorced. We needed to sell the property. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have a lot of time. The mortgage company was putting pressure on us to sell it as quick as possible. And that meant we had to undervalue it. And the realtor said we have to keep dropping the price to get the buyer because the bank's they're not going to renew your mortgage. Our mortgage was up for renewal. We were joint on it. They weren't going to take it knowing our situation. So we were, you had this 3-month window. We had to sell it. Otherwise we wouldn't have a mortgage on the property and they would just take it and sell it for us. Mm-hmm. So
that was around maybe 2010, 11, 12, maybe.
Around, yeah, you're good, man. You're really good. It was like, 2010.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So now I'm renting. So now that's a whole different ballgame. I like the freedom of renting, because I can move easier. I don't have that burden of selling a house, but you don't have it to call your own. You can't treat it like your own. You treat it like your own, but it's not your own. So you don't do those upgrades. You don't do those things. What it is what it is. Mm-hmm. You always have to go to somebody else who owns the home to try and convince them to upgrade or do or paint or whatever. So, but again, it's what you want to do for your lifestyle. So my kids are getting older. So, the question, do you want to buy or do I want that flexibility? One nice thing about the data game is I can work from anywhere. All I need is a computer and an internet connection and I can hook up to anything these days. I don't need to be in an office and I can work from anywhere. So do I want to have a house that I'm locked into where it's your property? Yes, you can rent it yourself, but that has a whole other challenges. Or am I comfortable with the fact that maybe I should just keep my flexibility and be able to travel and do or go work for whoever I want to go work for? It's a question I'm playing with in my mind right now at this stage of the game. Both have pros and cons. You're a realtor, so of course you're going to try and convince me to buy.
I just want what's best for you, of course.
Of course. But that's where we're at. And I think there's a lot of people in the same situation that instead of a house being a asset and who could have foreseen COVID? Like who could have foreseen these times? Sometimes for some people, if they don't have a lot of equity in their house, their home has become a liability in these very difficult times rather than an asset. If you have equity in your house, you can use that house to get you out of financial difficulty as well. And that is one thing I do worry about, that I don't own a house. So what am I going to leverage if things get really bad? How am I going to, start a new business to do these things? I have nothing to leverage. I don't own it. So I can't do anything. I'm at the mercy of my landlord, who happens to be one of those people in Calgary who stepped up for long-time renters. I've been in this place for 7 years. She has come to my aid, and she has been very good.
Right.
Before the government forced her to. That's just the type of person she is. So I've been lucky. I've been very lucky that way. But I don't have that extra asset to go to. So I think I'm in a unique position that a lot of people might be thinking about that. What does my house give me? And can I leverage it in some capacity, or has it become too much of a liability and I need to sell and downscale or move into something else? Or maybe Calgary's not the option. Maybe you always wanted to move somewhere else, and now's the opportunity because you have that ability to do so.
Well, I mean, you do, and that's sort of a little bit of this story, or this podcast a little bit, is there's lots of folks that have bought properties in 2013 or 14 that don't have any equity, and maybe even the mortgages are high or more than what the property is worth. And I see it lots. So in any case, I'm sort of getting back to your intuition. Maybe your intuition is just working fantastic for you in the fact that you're in a rental. On the sort of the boom bust economy of Calgary, I mean, how do you cope with it? And how does it affect your mindset? I think that you've already given our listeners some sense of that, but is there anything else to add?
Yeah, I think you have to be forward thinking. I think you have to be always looking for that opportunity, and always aware that in Calgary, not just in Calgary, but in Canada in general, we've never been a flat economy anywhere. We're not like the United States that has certain areas that are pretty steady all the time. There's areas that will boom and bust, but overall, and Calgary certain drives this, it's interesting. The further west you get, the more boom bust you get. Yeah, surprisingly, the further east you get, the more depressed it gets. So when things go bad, they go bad for a long time. Only now is the Maritimes coming out of it, but my niece lives there. There was times I thought about moving there because you could get property for a fraction of what you would get, like $1 million homes. Well, they would cost here in Calgary, and you could pick them up in the Maritimes for like $250,000. It's like, what did my brother say? I can almost buy a house here for what my line of credit is. Like, I wouldn't need a mortgage. That's how insane it was at certain times. So I think you have to say, when times are good, always plan for when times are going to be bad. And those people who get themselves into trouble don't plan for it. Like, should anybody be surprised that we're in a downturn of oil and gas? No. Our average oil and gas surge, if it lasts 5 years, we're doing exceptionally well. So when you come to the end of that 3.5, you better be thinking about putting that enormous amount of money, because you might be laid off. And then think, well, that's not such a bad thing. I have plenty of friends who were laid off, and yes, they were laid off for a long time, but they worked for a long time with oil and gas, and the amount of severance that they got was unbelievable. They were able to pay off their homes. They were able to pay off their entire debt. They're debt-free moving into the next stage. God, I would love to be debt-free moving into the next stage. So what looked to be a negative is a positive. If you pursue it that way and you're forward thinking, you'll survive it. If you're not forward thinking and you're using techniques and strategies that were there last year, they may not be appropriate for this year. So I think those people who can ride the wave of the boom and bust are forward thinking. They're on top of things. They keep reading things. They keep talking to people like yourself and getting advice from experts. And they're not stuck in a particular way. Like certainly what my parents always taught me is, you asked me an important question when we first started talking about this. Why wouldn't you go do what you want to do and contract your services to other people? Why are you looking to be an employee of somebody else? And I'll give you a simple answer. That's the strategy of my parents. Get in with a company, stay there for 20 years and get your pension and get your benefits and know you have a steady income is more important than the almighty buck of what you might be able to make on the free market. And it gives you less anxiety. Well, I played that game. And with the boom and bust, there's no guarantee in Calgary. Absolutely none. You can be a full-time employee and be let go tomorrow because things change. There's no guarantee. It doesn't give you the security like it did to my parents. And with my brother and other people and my friends, you don't have that security here in Calgary. You might in Winnipeg, because Winnipeg's loyal to a fault. And that's part of the community's culture. But in Calgary, nothing is secure. You have to protect yourself. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way, in a cutthroat kind of way. It's just the nature of the boom and bust economy. So the way things used to be 20 years ago certainly don't work today. And that you could say, oh, that's horrible. I'm going to go find a place where that model does work. Certainly it does. But it doesn't work here. And I'm a prime person for that. I've had great opportunities and I've moved to great opportunities. My skill set has allowed companies to come take me from other companies, but I've had to move on 3 times in like 18 months to 2 years because of the boom and bust. Things happen. They think it's going to go one way. It doesn't go one way. And you part ways, or your missions don't come together, or you're not a right fit for the company with where they want to go. A multitude, or COVID hits, something you never thought about. And then you add that boom and bust. But it is difficult because we're probably at the lowest that we've ever been in terms of a driver of this economy in Calgary. And wow, to dig ourselves out of that's going to take a while. So you got to hang on to what you got. But at the same time, spend where you need to spend to invest when it's going to come out. I mean, what guys who play the stock market are probably loving this right now. They love all these stocks that were overvalued that have crunched out. And if you've got some liquid capital, wow, this whole COVID thing, you can make millions if you know what you're doing. Because we're going to come out of it eventually. And those who invested their money appropriately with those companies that are going to rebound from this can stand to make millions of dollars. If they were wise. So that's the plus side. But as an individual, it's difficult, this up and down economy. Right. But if you always plan for the downturn and not plan for the upsurge, take advantage. What did one person tell me? Take advantage of the upturn and always prepare for the downturn.
Oh, nice. Yep. I like it. Before we pressed record on this today, we talked a little bit about your gold-keeping son. And a little bit of, I think you were kind of created a bit of an app to record a little bit, like, you know, being a young person or almost any person, we have to brand ourselves. Can you share a little bit of the story about, you know, your experience with your son, and if that's okay?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It goes along with what I was saying about finding your passion. So my passion is photography. My passion has always been storytelling. But in particular, photography, and photography for a particular reason. Even though I made my career with television, which is a moving image, photography holds those moments and those special moments And those fleeting moments that you lose in video, constant. And the nice thing about that is that they become a static memory. But one thing data analytics has taught me, nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything happens over time. So much of what I've done in data analytics is comparing your actuals to your target of where you want to be versus where you actually are. But that changes. That's not the same today as it was yesterday, and it won't be the same tomorrow as it was today. So unless you chart all of that out, the fact that you were 30% below your target or where you should have been today means nothing, because you need to see it in relation to a context. So it's the same thing with photography. So I created this timeline where you can take, but it's all based on photography. It's what I call storyography. So now I'm branding myself as not just a data storyteller. I've opened that up. I shorten it up because no one can remember my last name, but everybody remembers, and I've always been called Brad Zip. So it's Brad Zip, the storyographer. And when I was teaching training programs for soft skills as a trainer and a teacher, which I also love to do, I always played a game with people. I had to find that one phrase of what their true character was. So may they be the stylist or the fixer or the project manager or the miser or the one who actually watched all the dollars or the succeeder or whatever. It always had to be a short phrase. So I use that in my own branding, and I'm now Brad Zip, the storyographer. But I do it in a unique way, which I brought together my whole data, which I view data as nothing more than dots, and dots have certain qualities, and dots are made up of zeros and ones, a yes or a no. Did I purchase? Didn't I purchase? Did I click? Didn't I click? Did I move forward? Didn't I move forward? Everything's very simple that way. It's all dichotomy. So I bring those all together in like zeros and ones patterns, and I call them a dot. And so my story is all about the dot. And I through the portal of one, I start big and I move it all the way forward, and I put it on a timeline where you can now layer in this app your audio clips about how you feel, your photo images of your nice portraits, your action shots, comments from other people like your coaches or your ones who are helping you succeed, or your colleagues or your business associates, your potential investors, whatever the case might be. You can create this storyline over anything. And I started with data. So worldwide, I start on the big map. There's about, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, so I'll just throw them out there as an example. There's about 230,000 young people playing soccer in an organized soccer. That doesn't include many Africa and other countries where they just play soccer as part of their culture. We're talking about an enrollment in an actual club. Mm-hmm. About 230,000. From that 230,000, only about 117,000, so roughly 50%, will even get to the point of an elite status, which in Calgary, that would be part of your tier 1 clubs. Mm-hmm. So there's different structures in the world, but roughly they'd be at the tier 1, which means they're going to be looked at. Out of those tier 1 people who are playing at a tier 1 level, only 30% of them will get a shot. So now that means you're down to 30,000. My son's a keeper. Out of those 30,000, no team carries more than 2. So now we're down to 15,000 keepers worldwide who have the potential to make it to the pros. Then you go down to who actually get invited to a camp and go through being with the pro club. You're at now 7,000. So now his odds of making it in Calgary and home that, and it gets less and less and less likely the more you move away from Europe into Calgary. So I take the visualization and I draw these dots and I bring it down to a single dot. That single dot is my son Levy. And he's an elite keeper wannabe, and he started soccer only 3 years ago. And he always said, I want to be a professional goalkeeper. I at a minimum, I want to get a university scholarship for soccer. That's a minimum. And that's his goal. And so he moved around clubs and we found opportunities, and he works really hard. Now he's a single dot. Do you know what his odds are? So remember that number I started with, 230,000? Yeah. He's got less of a shot than that. He's got 1 in 730,000 likelihood of making it living in Calgary.
Wow.
I don't even know what percentage that is. It's like 0.0000. It's less than our ratio of positive COVID cases, which is 0.7% right now.
Wow.
So we're less than that. Like, it's put some zeros in front of it. Like, who would do that? But add the storytelling. It's his dream. So now you put it on a whole timeline. You bring this together, and it's an app that would allow you his comments of why, where his coaches are at, his photos from 3 years ago all the way up to today, where the coaches, his evaluations, what his likely are, who he's getting as a mentor, comments from other European coaches, goalkeepers that I've gotten over the internet, who will make comments about how hard it's going to be to make it in today's world, even harder now in a post-COVID world, because we don't know what's happening with sports. You have to have a passion. If you don't have a passion, you're not going to make it. So, but it's easy to lose sight of that. So you put it on a whole timeline, and I've taken it down using data, using data from the big data of what the other buzzword we like to call, down to a single dot. And that's why I call it through the portal of one. And then I'll raise that back up. So how about all those people who make it? Why would I concentrate on the negative of all those who don't make it? We hear that doubt voice in our head. I heard it. That's why I'm not a professional photographer. That's why I'm trying to relaunch that. Why? Because when I was younger and had that opportunity, it was that doubt put into your mind. You can't make a living doing that. You're an artist. You can't do it. You're good, but you're not that good. Go get a living. Go get a degree. Go get this. Go get that. So I listened to that. I'm 56 years old. The time to listen to that is over. COVID's taught me that. I have to listen to that now. So here I have the whole thing. And I could do this with anything, any application. Your sales, I could do that with. Your desire to be a successful realtor, I can do that. What you want as an entrepreneur who has a retail outlet, know where you came from, and then present that. And the beauty of this is you can embed it in your own website. You can send it out to people. They click on it. They move across the timeline. You don't care about what happened 20 years ago and where you were 20 years ago. I don't care. Where are you today? What a great little comparison. So I have another application that lays over the top. I want to compare where I was 20 years ago to where I am today. Click on your time frame here and it pops up in the window. Before, after, current. This is what you are. Where do you want to be? So you can create that visualization. What entrepreneur tells you, because I'm fascinated with this, and I had a show called the Entrepreneurial Vision when I first became the creative director when Access privatized. And it was a show that talked to successful entrepreneurs and said, what is your vision? How did you become that? And there was a singular string that went all the way through it. I had a vision and I was obsessed with it and I never gave up. And I would do anything to make that visual a reality. And that's why they were able to succeed, because they only associated with people who were like-minded, who wanted them to succeed. And would constantly talk about it till people were blue in the face and sick of them, but they didn't care. And they wouldn't stop till they succeeded. So if you can present your vision of what you want to be. So the other thing that we're doing as a result of this, my son and I are grappling with a new apparel line where you take your own images and you brand yourself on, and you make your own jerseys with your images on it. And what do you want to be? Choose the team you want to play with, put your own brand and your own image and your own saying onto it. And that's what your future, that's your end state. So that's your end line. When do you want that to be achieved? So realistically, we're looking at 2023. So that's his endpoint. So on this timeline, I've already created his endpoint. Stephen King has a wonderful book called On Writing that's influenced me majorly. One of the hints that he gives in this book is write your ending first. Always know where you're going to end up. You can change the ending as it goes. But before you start writing a book, you better know where your ending is. If you don't have your ending, where are you going to start? How are you going to start? And so I always write the endings first and then become your dot. Wear your dot, become your data. You are your story. You make it happen. You are now a data point in this bigger data point. And instead of being absorbed by a blog, like I start the visual, I always remind the individuals of your one dot, your one retail business, your one realtor amongst the many. So but yet all those who were successful have a certain recipe that will make you successful, and you can contribute to that. So you can follow your whole journey through it. And as a small business owner, when I owned the bakery, it was easy to lose sight of where we were compared to where we became.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had this tool back then, because I could have shown investors, this is where I started, and this is where I'm at. Not just about a number on your books that your accountant is going to show them. This is who I am as a business owner. This is how I've grown. This is what my customers are saying, and this is what I want to become. Will you help me?
Mm-hmm. So is this, through the portal of one, this thing, is it actually a thing? Is it something that you will sell, or maybe will sell, or?
Yes, I'm in the process now of setting up my website, my Brad Zip, the Storyographer brand. And this is a major part of it. So through the portal of one is my blog. And I have 3 examples. I have my son. I have my mother, who right now, she's 86. She's grappling with cancer again. For 15 years, she went through cancer, from lung cancer first, beat that. Then got breast cancer, beat that. Then got lung cancer again, beat that. And now it's spread to her bones. So she's just finished her chemo. She's 86, facing those tough decisions. Sorry. But I wanted to show from the big data all the way down to one, the incredible strength that people have. And to not focus on all those who don't succeed as survivors, but to focus on the qualities of those that do. And my mom has an amazing quality. I don't know too many people who can not only beat this, but never get down on it. And at the same time, my father passed away from ALS 9 years ago. So my mom's had to do much of this without her life partner. They were married for 54 years. To be able to do this, talk about strength. So when I look at myself today in COVID, I look at her single dot and I go, I should not be having a difficult time getting up in the morning. If my mother can continue to get up in the morning and can continue to go on and say, I want to live, there's things I still want to accomplish after fighting this for 15 years, her dot, I should look at her dot and learn a little bit more from her dot, and not, and that's what I want to achieve with this app. So yes, it will be available. I haven't sorted out the whole models for doing so. I am looking for those people to come forward who would like me to do this with their business, with themselves as individuals, as my first clients, and do this as a test. Let's prove that this can work. Is it something? I haven't checked with the market to see if this is something what they would like. Again, it's my intuitive sense, and so many times I've seen what the future wants, but I've never acted on it. Now, out of the COVID reality, and I'm obviously not employed by anybody else at the moment, now's the time for me to do this. So I'm not going to listen to that voice that says, great idea, but I'm going to say, great idea, yes. And so I'm asking your viewers, if they're intrigued by this, they can get in touch with me. And we can talk further about it. I'm excited by it. I think it would be a wonderful thing, a wonderful tool that may have even bigger applications than what I'm aware of. It's a version of a tool that I did create for one of the oil companies in town to be able to track their daily key metrics in one place and be interactive, so they could hear by their field, and they could, from their field level, so oil and gas business. So from their field level, from their safety people, from their production people, their operation people. And it created a conversation at the same time. But I basically did it that you could track it over time. And so you can compare what they said they were going to do yesterday, did it have an effect on today? And what's our likely projections based on that action for what we're likely to see tomorrow, regardless of what we set out in our forecasts at our quarterly report times. So it gave you a real base, but it gave you a way to do dual interaction. That's the beauty of this. If you're viewing it, so I would take my sons, for example, and I place it up there. Your audience can now click a button and do an audio or an encouragement, or say, I like it, I want to become a client, I believe in you. Now, when you want to follow your dream, wouldn't take that as encouragement. You did a very important thing for me a mere 2 or 3 days ago. It got me thinking about being my own, because I respect you and I value your opinion. And we had never met before. So you saw something that I didn't see in myself. And you've given me the courage to put this forward. Wouldn't anybody like that? What a powerful app if you can actually get that from somebody. And it gets put in your timeline. It's there forever. It's an encouragement so that you can go back when somebody asks, my son, who was part of your success? How from the small town in Calgary did you get to be that elite keeper playing for Madrid? And he can say, you know what? It was that one comment from a complete stranger of Brian who said, I love your story, young man. You can do this. And not only that, I'm going to help you get there. Mm-hmm. So if you need something, you call me. I'm just saying, I'm not saying you did that. I'm just putting it out there.
Great. I love it.
But I mean, you have that. It's in his storyline and he can go back and say, not only that, I have the comment as a successful entrepreneur. Who gave you your break? That hotel chain that wanted my bread, that executive chef who believed, he came in and sampled my product and liked me, a very fancy Italian restaurant in Kensington that moved. It isn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. But they were using my focaccia, my French bread at one of the highest end Italian restaurants in Calgary. A humble guy who never baked with a Croatian baker. We're all of a sudden delivering bread every day and the guests had no idea. It's a local bakery. How honored was I and humbled by that fact that a small Italian family who was successful believed in me as a bakery and chose my bread over 100 other bakeries in town. Wow. That gave me confidence. That was a story I could tell.
Nice.
And they were the most beautiful family. They fed me every time I dropped off my bread. I couldn't leave there without them feeding me. What a beautiful Italian family. I became part of their family. It wasn't just more than bread. I put something on their table that they were proud of. They treated me like a member of their family. Unbelievable. Changed my life and changed my business.
Yeah.
I don't have that. That's a story I can tell you. Can I show you?
Yeah.
No. But as an individual, had a major effect on me. I think it's an app that everybody would want. I'd like to document. It's a new way of documenting. Instead of just being a photo album, why can't you tell your story all the way through? And remember, you're only one dot amongst the many. Mm-hmm. So you can change what you are as a dot.
Are we able to include a link to this in the show notes? Is this something that we would do or no?
Yes. In the show notes, I will have a link to my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I am using LinkedIn as a key for businesses and people to get in touch with me. I do have my domain. It isn't up and running yet, so I will provide you with what the domain will be. And then what I would invite people, and I would have an email to that. The email is functional. I'll provide that. And if any viewer is interested, they can just email me, give me their name, number, and their email address. And I will certainly, as soon as it's up and running, and they can see it. I do have demos. I can show on an individual basis what I'm talking about. Okay. So I can do it on an individual by individual basis, but I will provide you with all those links so that any of your audience who might be intrigued by this, and I never sell anything. I just want you to become part of it. So don't think that I'm trying to sell you on this. I'm humbled by any of your viewers who would just even show an interest in this and say, wow, what an interesting idea. So part of an idea, one of the other things, my catchphrase is a story's power is in telling it. And so my other website is intellingit.com, because in the same way as if you can't consume the data, it doesn't mean anything. If you have a story, but you don't tell it in a way that people will listen, then it doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. So it's in telling it. So in keeping with my catchphrase, I just want to tell as many people this fabulous story of what I'm trying to do, trying to live my dream, trying to do my passion. And hopefully along the way, I will make at least one individual believe in me and take a chance on me and help me. Not take a chance on me. Let me rephrase that. Provide their assistance, their expertise, and their skill set to allow me the privilege of achieving my dream. That's what I hope for as the result of this, that other people will help me. And in the process, I will do due turn and help them succeed. If we all want each other to succeed, then we will be successful, even during these difficult times.
Brad, what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
The best way, email is probably the best way.
And what is your email?
My email is bradzip@gmail.com. So I keep everything easy. So it's BRADZIP@gmail.com.
I've recently developed a habit of asking people, are they on Insta? Are you on Instagram, Brad?
I am on Instagram.
Brad Zip? Can we find you?
No, I was. Before this, I haven't rebranded it yet. So it's actually called BZip Creations is how you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter on Brad Zip. Instagram, I'm BZip Creations. Because when I was doing my training courses, I did my own curriculums and I wanted to own it. So I created this, that everything I was doing was a BZip creation. But then when I was doing my domain, there's a problem with BZip. There's another computer language that's called BZip. And it's a compression language. And everyone knows Zip 7 and Zip disks and everything. So not only that, I get myself into a little bit of, because I'm hoping to trademark these things under it. So if I just go with Zip or BZip, there's a great story of why I went with BZip. My father's name was Sydney, but everybody knew him as Zip. Many people didn't even know his real name. He just always went by Zip. And he had a really cool initial on all of his electrical tools. It was a Z with a line through the middle of the Z and up and curled around as a P. And then he would just draw a line for the I. That was his signature on everything. So, but we didn't want, out of respect to my dad, nobody would call us Zip. So they either call us Junior Zip or Baby Zip, but I have two other brothers. So they just put the initial in front of it. It was like D Zip, B Zip, M Zip. And so it was, so I wanted to do the B Zip, but I couldn't, I was going to get myself into legal problems because it was too close to this. And there is a bzip.com. There is a bzip for this other compression coding language that would get me in trouble. So I just said, you know what? My name's Brad. People have always called me Brad Zip. That's what I've got all my email addresses on. All my kids are all their first name Zip on all their emails. So it's kind of like, I'll just do that. I'll just brand myself as Brad Zip. It's easy.
Nice. Good. Makes sense. Brad, we probably should wind this up. What ask would you have of our audience today if on a final moving out? Any ask?
I think my ask is that to just reach out to me and see if there's a way that I can lend my current skills of data analytics and data storytelling to your current situation. If that leads us to the app, that's great. But just explore with me. I'm not even talking about becoming a paid client. It doesn't matter to me at this particular moment in time. If you have a need for understanding your data that you already have, I know I can help you achieve an understanding of that. So please email me, reach out to me, and I will lend my assistance in any way that I possibly can to help you figure this out. Every one of us has some data that we're looking at, a business, an individual entrepreneurship, or you just want to be able to tell a story because you yourself have a dream and you want to attract investors. I can help you interpret that and help you create the story that you need to achieve your success based on the data that you're already collecting. So my ask is just contact me. I can help you.
Brad, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's been most enjoyable. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, that was fun. So what will your life look like in 5 years or 10 years, your business life? Could looking at the story, the past story of where you've come from and looking ahead in the next 10 years, and graphing that out. Could that be of interest? Or should you have a close look at your KPI metrics? Some financial forecasting, product performance, some campaign tracking, or finding out what's happening with your marketing and how is it converting, some client segmentation or client profiling. Seems like Brad might be a fit. Well, for me, in my business, and possibly for you. Maybe you can put some of his years of data analysis, social science, marketing content creation, his TV broadcasting background, and his passion and interest in storytelling to work for you. Well, let's help Brad reinvent himself. After this COVID-19, he had just been laid off, sort of into that the end of March. I think he's got a bright future. His background, his skill set is heavily in need. Well, wishing him all the best. If you know somebody who should be on the show, please reach out to me. You can find me on Insta at Calgary_living, or just send me an email, brian@thehowardteam.net, or just give me a call, 403-589-0004. And finally, if you have questions or need help navigating this Calgary real estate market, I would love to help.